Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MPF podcast. My name is Brad Nordstrom, owner and operator of Maximum Performance and Fitness here in West Fargo, North Dakota.
And I am Levi Nordstrom, college student, majoring in communications at NDSU, and I'm under the weather today.
You sound like you have a little frog in your throat.
But today we will be talking about fitness intensity.
This is going to get pretty heavy, so before we get into that, let's I want to get your take on J.J. McCarthy. What do you think? Think he's got it? Do you think he can bring the Vikings back from the dead?
Funny enough, I was actually just messaging Camden, my buddy, Vikings superfan, about 5 minutes ago. Sent a message that said, "Talk to me, Dino. Is J.J. McCarthy going to figure it out?" And there was some positivity in the feedback I received, but what I have seen on TikTok is very concerning because his throwing motion's not the greatest. It's going to take a while. I just don't know how patient we are. It might be 10 games from now where he's actually up to par and playing like he should be playing. But yeah, it's only his fifth start.
How many draft picks did we give up to trade up to take him?
Not that much.
Oh,
we
wasn't
traded
a big deal?
We went up one pick.
Oh.
So it was like, I think it was, let's see.
So
actually.
it wasn't like a huge deal or anything.
They traded a fourth and a fifth to move up.
Well, that's a little bit more to move up one pick.
Well, if it's for a quarterback, the price is going to be a lot higher.
True, but he throws the long ball like a javelin. That's kind of spooky to me.
Yeah, but that's his best trait, so I'm not too worried about the form if he completes
he
the
doesn't
passes.
have much of a touch, does he?
No.
He's got a cannon, and he lets you know it.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get into the topic at hand today.
Right, time to get to work.
How hard should you work out is the main question, but we're going to be breaking it down because that's too broad. It's too broad. We have to be more specific. So the first question that I want to dive into is, what do people actually mean when they say train harder?
You're talking like people like me.
Yeah.
I'm telling somebody, hey, you got to train harder. Well, really what it means is we got to kick up the intensity. So there's a number of things that needs to happen. If you're doing cardio, it could be going faster on the VersaClimber, going faster on the bike. Maybe for somebody that's working on their own, training a little bit longer. Maybe you're used to going for 8 minutes on the treadmill, maybe kicking it up to 10. But training harder is different for everybody. For somebody just getting going, that hard is going to be way less than somebody that's been going for a month or two. In other words, they need to kick it up even more. So the train harder is just, we got to kick up the intensity a little bit.
Speaking of intensity, when pushing yourself, is it really necessary every workout to push yourself to the level of where you're super fatigued and exhausted after your workout? Or is it maybe fine to slow down a little bit and maybe take some more breaks between lifts or whatnot?
It's a challenging one to answer, and the reason being is that everybody is at such a different level. You've got to know your level. For example, let's say somebody is just getting started. They know how to work out. They've worked out, but they've had kids, and maybe they haven't worked out for 5 years. That person, maybe we need to idle back quite a bit. Maybe you push yourself fairly hard on workout one. Let's say that's on Monday, and you come back on Tuesday and you're just super, super sore. Well, you may want to idle it down a little bit. You still want to push yourself, but one thing that I like to use is a rating of perceived exertion scale. So, for example, and there's multiple variations of it, but just a simple way to think of it, it's a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being super easy, 10 being super hard where you never want to do that workout again. For the most part, you want to get yourself into that 6 to 7 range most of the time, every time. And then we can kind of peak up and down off of that.
How come you think workout intensity confuses people?
Well, I think that it confuses people because, for example, like somebody that's just starting, had a 4 or 5 year layover, even a 1 year layover, haven't done anything, everything feels hard. You might see somebody else going twice as fast as you, and you're like, holy smokes, why is this so hard for me? Well, you haven't done anything for a year, so your body is like in shock right now. So I think that's probably the one thing that it confuses people. At the beginning, everything is hard, so it's hard to gauge your own intensity. I think the other thing is I shouldn't say a lot, but there's quite a few people out there that aren't used to training pretty heavy and pretty hard. So they don't know how hard to go. It doesn't click per se. So that's where the education comes into play. Like, hey, you're not trying to belittle somebody by saying, hey, we need to kick up your intensity a little bit. You're trying to educate them to understand that, you're doing great, but I know you can do better. You're getting in better shape every time you come in, so you got to keep pushing a little bit harder to kind of reach those goals. Once again, we always go back to that why. Why are you here? What is your goal of being here? And then helping progress them along that way.
As a trainer, is it hard to tell if somebody's kicking it up or, especially if they haven't worked out for, 2 to 3 years or whatnot? Is it hard to tell if they're really pushing themselves? Or is it pretty noticeable, they're huffing and puffing a little bit, or you can just tell that they're visibly exhausted? How difficult is that as a trainer to just tell where they're at?
That's actually kind of a fun question, because to me, I don't know, I've been doing this a long time, and I can go by my ears. I know I'm half deaf, but I can tell if people working out a little bit harder, whether it's the Airdyne bike or the VersaClimber or the rowing machine or whatnot. I can hear, and you get to know them. They've been coming. So like, for example, the Melt clients, we don't record any of the data. Basically, if you want to record data on whether it's your distance, how far you can go in 1 minute on the VersaClimber, or how much dumbbell weight you need for sets of 10, you would want to record that on your own. So for example, we use the Team Builder app. All the workouts for Melt are in that Team Builder app, and clients have the option to download it and record their weights. If we're personal training somebody, we've got it right there with us every time. So I can tell if somebody's training harder based on, all right, last month we did this weight for 6 reps, and now guess what? You just did the same weight for 10 reps. Or I'm actually very meticulous on recording weight, so I know exactly where people are for personal training clients. And then it's not real hard just because of how many years I've been doing it. But for somebody starting out, I think it is a little bit of a challenge, and I think it's a challenge because you may not feel comfortable telling somebody to train harder.
Mm-hmm.
They might think they're working out harder, but deep down you know that, hey, you know what? I think that person can push a little bit more.
You also don't want to scare them off.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You don't want to scare them and like, holy smokes, I can't do this. I'm like, yes, you can. And you just got to work into it. You go at your own pace. It's okay.
For beginners, do you think it's important to have intense workouts, maybe compared to intermediate or advanced people that are, experienced in lifting or have done it their whole life? Does that RPE really matter, or is it important to just get moving first?
I would say the most important thing for somebody, either as a beginner or coming back from a long layover, is to get moving. That RPE, we may not be, if we're going to educate you on it, be like, hey, let's try to stay around that 5. This is working me, but yet I could, if I'm doing a squat, for example, this is challenging me, but I could probably do 5 more reps. You know what? That's going to be okay. Let's just get you going. You're probably going to get pretty dang sore anyway, so let's just get moving. Let's take, probably 2 to 4 weeks, and then we'll start kicking up intensity. Some of the clients that I've seen that have the most success from getting from point A to point B are the ones that started out the slowest. Mm-hmm. They didn't get super frustrated because they were so dang sore they never wanted to come back. I mean, they were sore, but yet they could still move and function in everyday activities. And that just allowed them to be consistent and keep coming every day.
Speaking of starting slower, training hard versus training smart, how do we know the difference between those when we're lifting, when we're in the thick of it?
In the thick of it. Well, the thing about training hard and training smart really can be the same if somebody doesn't know what they're doing. With that being said, you can train hard and train smart at the same time. What that means is training smart is to understand your body and when you need to maybe idle down a little bit. So you're training hard, you're going whatever, Monday through Friday. Typically here, for example, on our melt workouts, our Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are upper body days. Our Tuesdays, Thursdays are lower. Saturdays you have the option of upper or lower. Let's say you're coming 5 days a week. There's going to be some type of pressing movement Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We all know that come in here, Friday's going to be bench press day. If we are pressing extremely heavy on Monday and Wednesday, by the time we come to Friday, it's going to be like, oh smokes, I don't have the push that I thought I would because you haven't recovered. So that person might want to go, all right, I'm going to push a little harder on Monday, and then Wednesday I'm going to idle it down a little bit, where maybe I'm training at a 6-ish with my weights, because I know on Friday we're going to do 7-5-3 or whatever kind of a rep scheme we do, and then that way then I know I'm ready to push hard, and then you recover again. So you got to kind of listen to your body.
At MPF here, do you intentionally set, if you're going to do a 5-3-1 day, the workouts beforehand throughout the week? Let's say you have bench press on Friday, you're doing 5-3-1. On Wednesday, do you intentionally have the reps as, maybe you're doing reps of 10 or whatnot? Is it intentional so you can recover? Or is that more so on the person to just recognize that if they're going to come in on Friday, let's go a little bit lighter on Wednesday?
I would say it's a little bit more onto the person, and the reason being is that we have people coming in and out all the time throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
So we might have somebody come on Wednesday that hasn't been in all week, and maybe they aren't going to be here on Friday. And if it's too light of a workout on Wednesday, they're like, well, what the heck? I mean, why was this so easy? So it's really up to the individual that's training to realize that, hey, I want to press heavy on Friday. I want to try to get a goal, a PR or whatnot. I need to idle it down a little bit on Wednesday. And then it's also kind of up to the client to talk to us too. It's like, hey, what's your plans Friday? I mean, typically how we do it is like we'll do a kind of a wave, like week 1, 9-7-5, week 2, 7-5-3. Week 4 is going to be 5-5-5, and then week 3, and then week 4 will be a 5-3-1. So every 4 weeks, you have the opportunity to see if you can reach a PR.
Speaking of bench press and PRs, let's talk about more strength-related questions. How hard should you push each set, especially when you're doing those bench presses?
All right, so let's say we're talking bench press. The first thing you got to do is make sure you warm up good. I think we talked about this in one of the previous episodes. You get a little older, shoulders need to get warmed up, rotator cuffs need to get firing. Make sure you spend a little bit of time warming up. You warm up sets. I might do 2 to 3. Somebody else might only need 1, just depending on. But you always should warm up. Most of us don't know our max weight. Some of us do. But for the most part, you want your working sets between that 70 to 85% of your max lift. So with that being said, if you were to use, all right, I don't know what my max weight is, we would use the rating of perceived exertion scale and then utilize, hey, I want the majority of my working sets between that 6 to 8 scale, or 7 to 8. I can maybe touch a 9 once in a while, but it's a weight that, all right, I finished my set, or I'm about to finish my last rep. I want to be able to potentially do 1 to 2 more reps. If you feel like I could do 5 or 6 more reps, that's probably going to be a little bit too light. If you're like, I finished my rep, I could probably squeeze out 1 or 2 more, then all right, I'm right about at that weight I should be at.
During bench, you talked about 1 to 2 reps left in the tank afterwards. When is it okay to train until failure?
Well, I would say that'd be occasionally. I think it's definitely a good to train to that failure rate, maybe like once a week on that last set. Maybe it's you go through, you're doing a 9-7-5. That happens to be the rep scheme today. So you get your 9. All right, I could probably do a couple more. I come back around, I do my 7, and then now I'm on to my 5. And then if you're using Team Builder, you're going to know what you've done in the past for 5. You're like, okay, let's see what I can do. Maybe I did 225 last week for 5. I'm going to see if I can get 235 or 230 or whatnot. You might make it, you might not. So you've trained to failure. I would say about once a week. I think that if you continually do that day in and day out, you're going to be more apt to injury. I think people need to understand too is when somebody gets hurt, it's typically not just one reason why you got hurt. It's more than likely how's our sleep? How's our home life stress? How is our nutrition? I mean, it's all encompassing for when someone gets hurt. It's really typically, I got hurt because of the bench press. You got hurt while you were doing it, but that's not necessarily the reason why.
Because your muscles didn't have time to repair.
They didn't repair real well. Mm-hmm. Good point. They didn't recover as well in between. Maybe you were going too heavy too often, and like I said, something's got to give sometimes.
I like the idea of being able to fail. I feel like it's important to know your limits, mm-hmm. and it also gives you an idea on what you should push for in the future. Because if you never want to train until failure, how much are you really going to improve or grow? So speaking of growth, let's talk about muscle growth. When you're looking for that, how close to failure should you really get to if you want to grow but avoid the injury and setbacks?
Well, I think that the first thing you got to do is you got to talk to your muscles. Demand them. Grow. That's big. I mean, have a little chat. Have a little self-talk, self-reflect. Talk to those muscles, explain the situation, and then it all goes to your mind after that. You're going to be ready to go. And I think the biggest thing, if you're using that RPE scale, you want to be in that 7 to 8 range for the most part on your sets. So which is anywhere in that 60 to, I would even probably bump it. I'd say 70 to 85% of your max weight. And then it comes to nutrition. I mean, you can train as hard as you want, but if you don't have the proper nutrition and supplement plan, it's going to be pretty dang hard to grow.
I know of a friend that lifts 4 to 5 times a week, and recently he's been complaining about not getting that growth. And I didn't talk to him personally. I just heard it through a person that he was complaining.
Yeah.
And my instant questions were, was he taking any supplements? It's like, I feel like if you're taking supplements, you should be able to grow and improve your weight gains, your muscle gains. Is he taking a lot of protein? It's like, feel like that's a very common thing. It's where if you're not growing, there's probably a lack of, nutrients that you're intaking.
Well, I think that, we live in a world that we want instant gratification. I've been, I'm 51 and I've been doing this for, holy smokes. I mean, I lifted in high school, so what are we looking at? 40 years, 35 years of training. You'd think, oh yeah, you should be, the biggest man on the earth. Well, no, that's not how it is. People, number one is like, it takes time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's not, you got to train hard, and then you got to really focus on your recovery. And I think that's like with you and your age, I mean, it is actually pretty easy to put muscle on. Once that person gets a little bit older, and that gets harder and harder. But to be honest with you still can. When you're my age and older, you can still put muscle on.
Just might take a little bit longer.
Just might take a little longer. It's okay. It's a lifestyle anyway, so keep going.
Moving on to the cardio section. A lot of people are, into cardio more so. What heart rate zones or intensity levels make cardio most effective?
This one here always intrigues me because you look out and you hear about, everybody's talking about the zone 2 and then the HIIT and whatnot. Well, here we focus on the HIIT, high intensity interval training. We use multiple different intervals. Could be your 20-second sprints, which are great if you push it. And that's what's hard to get people to push hard for 20 seconds and then take your break. We'll do a lot more with 45 to 1 minute intervals, 45 seconds to 1 minute, and so forth. So if you're using your heart rate, for example, a ton of people wear watches. They've got their Apple Watches and whatnot. You want to be between that 65 to 85% of your max heart rate, pretty much the whole time. Now, with that being said, how do you figure out your max heart rate? You take 220 minus your age, and that gives you an estimate of your max heart rate. It's just an estimate. I feel like you take 220 minus my age, what would that be? 170? 169, somewhere in there. 85%. I can go higher than that. I know my heart rate's higher than that because I've been training. So it doesn't work real well for those that have been training a long time. But when you're doing your cardio, like if you're doing HIIT style, we might do 20 minutes, might do 25, and there's breaks in there. If you're going to focus more on your long endurance zone 2-ish, then you might be going longer. You might be going for 30. You might go for 40, 45. So I always like to focus on the shorter, faster, which you're going to get significant improvements in your VO2 max, but then it's more time efficient as well. Speaking
of longer endurance, let's talk about long distance running, like marathons.
Ooh.
See, I know you did that. What was the
Spartan run?
Yeah, the Spartan run.
Holy smokes, it was a year ago today, I believe.
So how did you train for that amount of running when you haven't really done that your whole life?
You're exactly right. I did not do that my whole life. I've never been a runner. I was always a sprinter, and I love lifting. And when we did it, we did melt 5 days a week. So we would do our melt workouts. Then every Tuesday, Thursday, we did extra running. So we started out low, 1.5 miles extra, worked our way up to 2, and worked our way up to 2.5, and so forth. So on Tuesdays and Thursday, we were getting an extra 2 to 3 miles in. Then on Saturdays, we would meet, and then we actually worked our way up to 10, and we had it broken down. So what we would do is we'd always start with a run. So, for example, it was right around 2 to 3 miles. And then we'd come back to the gym, and then we would do 3 to 4 lifting exercises. So it was deadlifts, pull-ups, sled drags, tire flips, and variations of that. So a heavier type movement. Then we would go out and run harder. We worked our way up to 4 miles. And then we'd come back and then go through another set of, like I said, it could be deadlifts or whatnot. So we had our break, and then we went out and finished with another 4 miles. So we worked up to 10. Now that was a half marathon, but it was broken down. It was 30 obstacles, and some of them were like crawling under barbed wire to do the rope climb, which I failed miserably. I was pretty disappointed. Then if you fail, you have to do burpees. Now that's no fun. And then the running was broken down into 2-mile blocks. And we didn't know that. You don't know going into one of those races whether it's 2, could be 4, could be 5, and then you might have 4 obstacles stacked on top of each other. For me personally, that was about perfect. I knew I had 2-mile blocks, and it really wasn't the running part wasn't that big of a deal. And it's a progression. We had about a 12-week progression build up. I know there's a couple guys that were and gals that were really good runners, and the running part really was not hard at all for them. But it still was hard.
I think too, over preparing versus under preparing. You got it to where you were able to run, let's say 5 miles at a time, but you only had to do 2 miles. I think it's important to make sure you are prepared to that level. Like when it comes to football, you're doing all this cardio after you're done with 3 hours of football or whatnot. And it's not like you're just dead sprinting nonstop in football. There's some breaks and stuff. You're preparing your body for more than what it's going to have to be capable of.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be able to take in that much stress on your body, because once you're in that moment, it's not going to be nearly as hard as it would have been if you're only preparing for 2 miles at a time.
And you'll be mentally more sharp.
I would say the only challenge might be is like your pace might be kind of off, or you might not be used to running a little bit faster. Instead of running 4 miles at a time, you're running 2. So That could be a challenge with like pacing, but I would rather be more prepared and have to figure out the pacing on the fly.
Well, and when we did that, I mean, none of us had done one before, so you really don't know the pace anyway. And when we were going into it, it's like, all right, we're gonna really go, and we're gonna give it and see what we can do. And the whole time I was out there, I literally was passed by 2 people, and that was it. And so you don't know, and there's a ton of people on this course, but thankfully you're spread out for miles and miles, so you're not running into people. You're just passing them and running around them. But the two girls that passed me, I don't know what they were doing, but they were flying. Like, holy. It was towards the end, and I was like, it blew me away how fast they were running.
Transitioning into rest. Big topic here, because rest kind of varies, differing between certain types of workouts. You got your bigger lifts. The rest is obviously going to be more. We'll talk about that in a second. But why do you need to rest in between sets?
Well, there's kind of 2 reasons. One of them is you're trying to replenish your energy stores. That's really the biggest one. And that's where, when you're doing your strength training, that's where the creatine really does come into play to help with that recovery. And obviously you got more power while you're doing the exercise. But really that's number 1. Mentally, number 2 as well. So it really just depends on what you're doing. If you're focusing on more like hypertrophy, like really trying to add muscle, and you really don't care as much about the strength side of it, that person, those are going to be less, there's going to be less rest between those. You're going to be resting less. Your reps are going to be a little bit higher, but the main thing is less rest for the muscle hypertrophy. And then if you're like, hey, you know what, you want that strength aspect, those are the ones that you're taking, that 2 to 3, 3.5, 4 minutes rest in between.
How long do you need to rest in between heavy sets like squats, deadlifts, and even bench?
Well, if we're going to focus on that strength aspect, I think you want to take at least 3 minutes and work your way up from there. We don't typically train like that with our melt program or with our clients unless we know they're really focusing on like getting ready for some kind of meet strength wise. It's always all about time efficiency. That's why we do a lot of pairing of exercises. So for example, on bench press, we might do a set of bench press. And like I said, we got 975s today. So we get done with our 9 and then take a minute and a half rest. Then we go do our pull-ups, take another minute and a half rest, do an ab exercise, and then come back to bench press. Well, if you really stop and think about it, now you just took 5 minutes of rest before your next set of bench press. So for the most part, you're getting enough recovery and you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where your time efficiency really kind of comes into play. If you were just to sit and bench press and you're going to take 3.5, 4 minutes between sets, I mean, you'll be on bench press for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just one exercise. So I'm all about time efficiency and how can we get the most bang for our buck, and it works great.
For lighter lifts, what is the ideal rest time? Like you're doing a little cable workout, or let's say you're maybe doing a little goblet squat.
Okay.
Some lighter lifts.
So like if you're doing a goblet squat, I mean, you'll be a minute and a half. Rotator cuff movements, you'll be able to go, you finish your exercise, you're like, ooh, I got to burn. Well, but you're not huffing. Huffing and puffing. You can go right into your next exercise. Maybe you're going to pair rotator cuff with bicep or tricep exercise, whatever. You really don't need more than heading over to the next station and get rolling. So that, like the smaller muscle groups, you need less recovery because you're not taxing your cardiovascular system as much.
Can short or even a long time of rest be almost counterproductive?
Yes, it can be. And I think that, like I said, it really kind of goes back to your goals. I think if you're, like you say, you're wanting more of that muscle hypertrophy, shorter rest periods, that's what kind of you're looking for. Sometimes you're taking too long a rest, you come back around to your next set and you almost have to re-warm up again. You're not going to get a whole lot out of that as well. There's that fine line in there where you're taxing the system. You can only go so hard if you go too short. And if you go too long, you don't necessarily want that full recovery either, because then you're you might have to, like I said, like, well, that feels heavy again. Your nervous system starts to forget about what you're doing. Physiological system starts to wind back down and so forth.
Let's talk about between strength sessions. So Wednesday to Friday, how much recovery do muscles need between these strength sessions? Like, can you just go Tuesday, Wednesday, upper body? Like, how much time do these certain muscle groups really need? Or is it more important to, maybe have a day in between or maybe 2 days in between? How much recovery do muscles really need?
Really, it's a twofold type answer. It's really depending on the condition of the client, per se. So you need to have at least 48 hours in between, really. What I've seen, the clients that are the most inconsistent tend to be the ones that develop issues more often, develop your tendonitis type issues and whatnot. So it's like they're almost giving themselves too much recovery. And then if you don't take enough, then you get some tendonitis issues as well there. So for example, in an ideal world, I think you want to move more days of the week than not. And for example, seems like the bench press is the common theme today. I'm going to press heavy on Friday. If I come around, so I got Saturday, Sunday off, that's 48. Come back Monday, I should be able to press again and be fine. I've seen some programs out there where you might press heavy on Monday or Friday, and now you come back on Tuesday and bench again. So it really depends on time and what you're looking for. I guess if somebody's focusing on, hey, I'm going to really focus on strength. I am going to not do a whole lot of cardio. I'm going to really focus on getting good and strong. That person's going to take more time. They might go Fridays and Tuesdays. They might squat heavy on Thursday and then squat on Monday. Thursday, Monday, press Friday, Tuesday. Shoulders might be on Wednesday. I mean, it's really dependent on the goals.
The reason I talk about bench so much is because about 75% of the people in the weight room are all doing upper body.
Yep.
I think it's kind of funny.
When was the last time you went out and somebody asked you, what's your squat? Hey, well, everybody wants to know, hey, what's your bench?
Yeah. I happened to see Aiden Kisser. I'll shout him out. He was doing front squats.
Oh, jeez.
One of the only guys that I seen doing front squats. His warm-up was 225 front squat.
Holy crap.
Holy moly, this guy he's not messing around when he comes to the weight room.
Yeah, you go into a college weight room and tell me the last time you see somebody do a front squat.
Yeah.
He obviously was an athlete.
Now, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the sparkling protein? New thing on the block.
Sparkling Protein by Genius Gourmet. This is a blue raspberry lemonade. It has 30 grams of protein, 130 calories. I don't mind it. It is interesting. I probably wouldn't... it's got some mushroom extract in it. And it's used to preserve the quality. That's interesting. I wouldn't say it's my number one go-to by any means, but I'm like, I don't want an energy drink. And I knew this was going to have a little sparkling to it. It's a light, bubbly, refreshing way to enjoy clear protein isolate. I don't know. I don't mind it. What did you think?
I like it. One thing I have noticed is if you're going to drink it, have it all in one go. Don't put it back in the fridge for later because it's like the sparkle's gone.
Hey, how's the Coraminos? Are you getting used to them yet?
I just suffer through it.
Sometimes that's what you got to do. Suffer through it. Just slam it down your throat.
It's not as bad as it was originally. So, yeah, I'm taking creatine and aminos every day in the morning. I just have it after, I have my morning shower. I just make the creatine amino drink and mix it up and down the chute.
Down the hatch.
Just to kind of wrap up this whole topic, if listeners remember just one thing from this episode, what would you want it to be?
Well, I think the main theme really is the intensity of training. How hard should you be training? And I think if you were to just remember that rating of perceived exertion scale and think about, all right, do I feel like I'm training between that 6 to 7 to 8 range? I'm touching 8 once in a while, maybe sneaking up to 9 once a week and so forth. I think that's the biggest thing. How hard am I training? Look yourself in the mirror. Make the choices that make you realize that, you know what? I got better today. It shouldn't be, holy, I got ripped down to the ground, and then the next day you rip down to the ground again. You've got to recover. And everybody's different at that. I got some people that can recover extremely fast, and then others that really take a while to recover. So you've got to listen to your body.
Also, when you hit your PR, make sure you go celebrate. Go to McDonald's.
Go to McDonald's. I thought it was when you hit your PR, go ring that PR bell. Everybody knows. Go down there and hit the bell.
We've had a serious podcast for the most part. I want to talk about something quickly because we got a little bit of time here. Let's talk about space related to exercise.
Like, this is interesting.
Because lately I've been in my space zone, space realm, watching all these YouTube videos, trying to learn as much as I can when it comes to space. And I think it's super fascinating when it comes to like exercise in space, because you have to exercise 2 hours a day.
That's crazy.
2 hours a day just to have minimal loss, because you're still losing your muscle density, or whatever it's called, your bone density especially.
Yeah.
So when you've been in outer space for a year, which has happened multiple times, coming back to Earth, experience all this gravity, it's extremely taxing on your body, and you have to almost learn how to walk again, basically, even though you're doing your 2 hours a day. So it's just something that is fascinating to me, how different it is when you don't experience that gravity pushing down on you, causing you to, force your muscles to move. And we're so used to the gravity that we don't understand how important it is for our body.
That is what's really amazing about that. And I haven't really looked into it a ton. And, we were talking the other night about, the trip to Mars. And it's like, well, all right, well, somebody that's going to be on that ship to go to Mars, they're not going to experience gravity for months and years. And I don't know what the gravity is on Mars and whatnot.
1/3.
1/3 of Earth?
Yeah.
So, and it's pretty obvious if you're training in your ship on your way to Mars, you can't use dumbbells because it's not going to, it ain't going to be hard if there's no gravity there. So
180-pound dumbbell bicep curls.
So they've obviously got some machines that are set. I've not looked into it or seen them, but it's stuff that you wouldn't think about. It's like, what do you mean I got to work out? Well, we don't understand. Like, we're just used to it. So if you go into a weightless environment, your body is like, oh, I don't need to have any muscle anymore. And that's pretty dang cool.
Basically, they use 3 different types of exercise machines. We have the stationary bike. So, that's pretty normal, pretty common. A treadmill with a harness and bungee cords.
Yeah, I suppose you got to pull yourself down.
And then advanced resistive exercise device.
Yeah, so it must be some type of, it could be hydraulic, or I suppose it could have weight stacks on it, and you have to press it. I don't know.
It uses vacuum cylinders to provide resistance for weightlifting exercises.
So basically it's a hydraulic type thing. That is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but just thought it was something fun to bring up to lighten the mood after a tough conversation. Cool. Landing on Mars is probably 10 years away, but let's make it tomorrow. Let's go to Max Performance Fitness tomorrow on Monday, because you're seeing this on Sunday, of course. And let's get in the weight room. Let's get stronger day by day. We have a shout out though before we go. Jeff Rowe Bison, 6729, from our Muscle Mechanic episode, said, great episode. I'd like to take a short walk when I find my afternoon dragging at work.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I wonder if he has 6'7" in there for 6'7" or what that's all about. I like that. I'm going to ask him that next time I see him.
Yep. Now, make sure you guys subscribe to the MPF podcast. Here to give you good fitness advice and space advice, potentially.
Space advice too, right?
Every Sunday. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed, and put a comment below of any questions you have, and we will see you guys in the next one.